greatest person is not the smartest person, nor the person with the best starting point, but the person who can do ordinary things over and over again, long enough, while most people have already given up. That is why there are people who used to be very ordinary, but a few years later their lives changed completely, while many others are still standing exactly where they were 5 years ago. Not because they are less capable, but because every day they are quietly destroying their own potential with procrastination, lack of discipline, toxic environments, and weak words inside their heads. The scariest thing is not failure. The scariest thing is living long enough to get used to the mediocre version of yourself. And then one day you look back at your life and realize you could have become so much more. Today, I want to share with you 7 ways that can completely change how you think, act, and live. Not short bursts of motivation that make you excited for a few minutes and then disappear, but things that truly create discipline, resilience, growth, and a stronger person over time. And trust me, there is one thing at the end of this video that if you truly understand it, you will never look at procrastination the same way again. Because sometimes the distance between an ordinary life and an extraordinary life is only found in the small things you do every day when nobody is watching. First way, never stop learning. There is something I realized very late in life. The difference between someone who stays stuck forever and someone who keeps growing is not talent. It is about who is still willing to learn when life starts becoming difficult. You know, there are people who leave school and from that day on, they never truly learn anything new again. They still work, still make money, still live. But inside, everything starts standing still. Their thinking stands still. Their view of life stands still. Their ability to grow also stands still. And the scary part is, when a person stops growing, they usually do not realize it immediately. It happens very slowly. So slowly that many people call it maturity. I once met a man who worked at the same company for nearly 20 years. He was hardworking, always on time, not lazy, but his life almost never changed. Every day looked exactly like the day before. He woke up, went to work, complained a little, watched TV, then went to sleep. And the next morning, everything repeated exactly the same way. The saddest part was, he had dreams. He once wanted to start his own business, wanted a better life, wanted to give his family a better future. But as the years passed, he started believing, maybe this is all my life will ever be. And then I realized a lot of people do not fail because they lack opportunities. They fail because they stop growing to it. Meanwhile, there are people quietly changing their lives with just one very small habit. Learning every day, reading a few pages, listening to a speech, thinking more deeply about life, being slightly more curious than everyone else. That is all. But do you know what is strange? Those small changes do not create results immediately. It is like planting a seed in the ground. You will not see anything for many days. And that is why most people quit. They read one book, but their life doesn't change immediately, so they stop. They try learning a new skill for a few weeks, see no results, then return to their old habits. But the best people are different. They understand something very deeply. Life does not change in one day. It changes through very small things repeated long enough. Like a tree, you do not see it growing every morning. But if you come back a few years later, everything is completely different. People are the same way. Every book you read is changing the way you think. Every meaningful conversation is expanding your perspective. Every time you learn something new, you are quietly becoming a different version of yourself. And sometimes, just one right idea is enough to redirect your entire life. I still remember a period in my life when I felt stuck. I worked very hard, but went nowhere. I thought the problem was money, opportunity, circumstances. But then I realized the biggest problem was I had stopped growing internally. I spent too much time trying to survive and forgot to build myself. And that was when everything started changing. I read more, listened more, observed life more. I started understanding that income rarely exceeds personal growth. A person cannot live on a higher level if their thinking is still stuck on the old level. That is why many people want to change their lives, but do not want to change themselves. They want new results while keeping the same old mindset. That can never happen. You cannot plant the same seed and pray for a different harvest. And remember this, the poorest person is not the person without money. It is the person who no longer wants to learn. Because when a person loses curiosity, they start aging from the inside. But the person who keeps learning, keeps growing, keeps asking questions, will always have a chance to start over, even if life once knocked them down, even if they once failed. Because knowledge does not only bring money, it brings perspective, resilience, confidence, and the ability to see what others cannot see. And then I understood the greatest person is not the person who knows everything, but the person who never stops becoming better than yesterday. But learning alone is not enough. Because there are many people who know actually what they need to do, but their entire lives still never do it. Second way, live with a clear purpose. There is a question very few people truly dare to sit down and answer: where am I actually trying to go in life? Not living just to survive. Not living just to pay bills. Not living just to get through one day after another. But truly, where are you going? I think this is one of the saddest things in life. A lot of people wake up every morning, rushing, tired, busy, yet they do not know exactly what they are running toward. They are only reacting to life. Money comes, they feel happy. Difficulty comes, they panic. Other people say something and they change direction, like a boat drifting in the ocean. No map, no lighthouse, no direction. And do you know what happens to a boat like that? It does not need a storm to get lost. If it drifts long enough, it will lose direction anyway. People are the same way. When you do not have a clear goal, life starts dragging you around through circumstances. Other people decide for you how you should live, what job you should do, how much dreaming is enough, and where your limits are. That is why many people reach 40, 50 years old, yet still feel deep inside that something within them has never fully lived, because they never truly chose their own life. They only lived by momentum. I once met a man who worked for more than 10 years in an old warehouse. Every day he woke up very early, went to work on time, never lazy. But his eyes always looked tired. One time I asked him, if life truly gave you a chance, how would you want to live? He stayed silent for a long time. Then he said something I never forgot. I do not know anymore. It has been so long since I thought about that. You see, that is the real danger. Not poverty, not failure, but reaching a point where you forget who you once wanted to become. The best people do not live that way. They have goals, not necessarily perfect goals. Not huge from the beginning, but they know where they want to go, what kind of person they want to become, what kind of life they want to build, and that changes everything. Because when a person has a clear goal, they endure better. They become stronger in hardship. They quit less often. Why? Because they know what their present pain is serving. A person without goals will see hardship as a reason to stop. But a person with goals will see hardship as the price to pay. That is a huge difference. I remember a period in my life when I felt like I was doing a lot, yet life still felt unclear. I woke up without excitement. Every day looked exactly the same. Then one person asked me, "Jim, what kind of life are you trying to build?" That question made me silent, because I realized I was working very hard for a life that had never been clearly defined. From that day on, I started writing my goals down on paper. At first, it felt awkward. Some goals sounded impossibly far away. But the strange thing was, the moment I started seeing my direction clearly, I changed. I woke up with more energy. I started protecting my time. I stopped wasting so much on things that led nowhere. And that was when I understood goals do not just create success. Goals create the kind of person capable of success. They pull you away from your old version. They force you to grow. They force you to become stronger. It is like climbing a mountain. When you can see the summit, your legs can endure a longer journey. But if you do not know where you are going, even a few small hills can make you want to turn back. A lot of people say, "I want a better life," but that is not a goal. That is only a vague wish. The best people are very clear. They say how many books they want to read, what kind of parent they want to become, how much money they want to make, how they want to live in 5 years, and clarity creates power. Because wherever there is vagueness, procrastination grows easily there. You can never hit a target you have never clearly seen. But remember this, goals are not for impressing other people, not for proving your worth. Goals are what help you wake up stronger every morning. They keep your soul from slowly dying in repetitive days. And sometimes, what completely changes a person is not that they suddenly become stronger, but because finally, they found a reason big enough to stop wanting an ordinary life. But even with goals, most people still fail because of something else. Something that silently destroys every dream. A lack of discipline when inspiration disappears. Third way, build discipline when inspiration is gone. There is something most people do not want to accept. Inspiration can easily lie to you. There are days when you feel extremely determined. You want to change your life, want to exercise, want to read books, want to start over. But then you are tired, life happens. Work drains you, your mood drops, and the thing that once excited you suddenly disappears. That is when most people stop, not because they do not have dreams, but because they only act when emotions are present. But the best people are different. They understand something very deeply. If your life depends on inspiration, then your life will always be unstable like the weather. When it is sunny, you try. When it rains, you quit. You cannot build a strong life with a spirit that constantly changes. And that is why discipline matters far more than motivation. I know discipline is not an exciting word. It is not glamorous. It does not create excitement like motivational speeches. But listen to me carefully. Discipline is the only bridge between the person you are today and the person you want to become. I once knew a man who always said he wanted to change his life. He bought many books, listened to many motivational speeches, wrote beautiful goals. But many years passed and everything stayed the same. One day I asked him, "What do you actually do every day to move closer to the life you want?" He stayed silent. And then I realized a lot of people love the feeling of starting, but they do not love the process of repeating. Meanwhile, life only changes through repetition. Not one day at the gym, hundreds of days. Not reading one book, but reading for many years. Not waking up early one morning, but having the ability to continue even when nobody is watching. The best people understand that. They do not wait for the right mood. They do what needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not. And I think that is one of the biggest differences between successful people and people who stay stuck forever. Ordinary people ask, "Do I feel motivated today?" Stronger people ask, "What do I need to do today?" Those two ways of thinking create two completely different lives. I still remember my early years. There were mornings when I did not want to wake up at all. I was tired, I doubted myself, I felt like I was progressing too slowly. Sometimes I thought, maybe I am not good enough. But then I started understanding something. You do not always need to feel strong to continue. You only need enough discipline not to stop. That is a huge difference. Because there are days, the thing that saves you is not inspiration, it is habit. The small things you repeat every day are quietly building your life. Like a farmer. He does not stand in the middle of the field yelling at the seeds, "Please grow faster." He simply continues, watering, caring for the soil, pulling weeds day after day. And eventually the harvest comes. Discipline is the same way. It does not create results immediately, but it creates the kind of person capable of creating results. That is what truly matters. The problem is, most people only want the results, but they do not want to become the kind of person who creates those results. They want a healthy body but do not want to train when tired. They want a better life but do not want to change their habits. They want success but love comfort too much. You cannot build an extraordinary life through easy choices every day. There is a quote I have always believed in. The way you do small things is the way you do your whole life. If you constantly break promises to yourself in small things, sleeping 10 more minutes, procrastinating one more day, quitting one more time, then slowly, you will lose trust in yourself. That is the most dangerous consequence, not failure. But the moment you start seeing yourself as someone unreliable. But the beautiful thing is, you can also rebuild yourself through very small things. Wake up slightly earlier, read a few more pages, take a walk instead of lying around. Keep small promises to yourself. At first glance, those things seem insignificant. But remember, a giant tree also begins with tiny roots underground. Micro-discipline creates a macro life. And one day, you will realize, what made you stronger was not one explosive moment, but thousands of times you chose to continue even when inspiration was gone. If this part speaks to you, leave a dot in the comments below. I want to know you are still here with me. But then life will test you with something even harder. There will be moments when no matter how hard you try, you will still fail. Fourth way, turn failure into strength. There is something nobody tells you when you are young, that on the journey to becoming the best, there will be moments when you feel like a complete failure. Not small failures, but days when you look around at your life and nothing seems to be going right. You try, but the results never come. You sacrifice, but nobody sees it. You begin to wonder, am I just not good enough? I think that is the moment many people give up. Not when things first become difficult, but when they have tried for a very long time and life still stays silent. I once knew a man who spent all his savings opening a small shop. He worked almost day and night. He stocked the shelves himself, sold everything himself, delivered orders himself. He believed if he worked hard enough, everything would work out. But then a few months later, the store started losing money. Debt appeared. Customers became fewer and fewer. The pressure kept growing. Eventually, he had to shut it down. I still remember the look in his eyes that day. It was not just sadness. It was the look of a man beginning to question his own worth. He told me, maybe I am just not meant to succeed. And do you know the saddest part? A lot of people think the same thing. After a few failures, they turn one event into an identity. They fail once, then start believing, I am a failure. But listen to me carefully. Failure is not the end. It is only proof that you dared to step outside your comfort zone. People who never fail are usually people who never dare to live bigger. You cannot learn to walk without falling first. You cannot learn to be strong without pain. You cannot become the best if you spend your entire life trying to avoid failure. But most people do exactly that. They play it safe. They stay in familiar places. They do not dare to try because they fear the feeling of failure. What they do not realize is the pain of failure only lasts for a while, but the pain of regret can stay with you for life. I have gone through periods when life made me feel very small. There were times I worked extremely hard, but got nowhere. Times I watched other people move ahead while I stayed stuck. And the most dangerous thing about failure is not losing money, not losing opportunities. It is the voice that appears in your head afterward. The voice that says, maybe I just cannot do it. That is what kills the most dreams. Not the first failure, but the moment people begin believing in their own helplessness. But then I started seeing failure differently. I realized every time life knocked me down, it always left behind some kind of lesson. Some lessons can only be taught through pain. Some growth only appears after collapse.
Like a tree.
A storm does not come to destroy a strong tree. It comes to expose weak roots. People are the same way. Difficult times show you how resilient you truly are, whether your discipline is real, how strong your faith really is, and sometimes failure does not destroy you. It only destroys the weaker version of you. That is why the best people do not run from failure. They learn from it. They look at mistakes and ask themselves, where do I need to grow? Weak people often ask, why is this happening to me? Stronger people ask, what is this trying to teach me? Those two questions create two completely different lives. I have met people who failed terribly. They lost money, lost careers, lost confidence. But a few years later, they came back stronger than before. Why? Because they did not let failure define them. They let failure shape them. That is a huge difference. You see, fire can burn something weak, but that same fire can make steel stronger. Hardship is the same way. It does not automatically make people stronger. It only gives you the opportunity to become stronger, and the final decision is still yours. You can use pain as a reason to quit, or use it to awaken the stronger version inside yourself. Because in the end, the best people are not the ones who never failed. They are the ones who can still stand up one more time after every fall. And then I realized nobody truly goes far alone. There are people who either pull you down or lift you into a better version of yourself. Fifth way, choose the right environment to grow. There is something I wish I had understood earlier, that sometimes the thing dragging your life down is not you. It is the environment you live in every day, the people you meet, the conversations you hear, the thoughts you constantly absorb. All of those things are quietly shaping who you become. Do you know the most dangerous thing about a bad environment? It rarely destroys you immediately. It only makes you smaller little by little, day by day, until you start believing living an average life is normal, quitting is reasonable, and big dreams are foolish. I once met a young man with enormous potential. Smart, hardworking, full of ideas, but around him were people who mocked every ambition he had. Whenever he talked about bigger goals, they laughed. Whenever he wanted to change, they said, be realistic. At first, he kept resisting. But over time, he slowly became smaller. He talked less, dreamed less, tried less. And a few years later, he became exactly the kind of person he once never wanted to become. That is the power of environment. It does not only change your actions, it changes your standards for life. If every day you stay around people who always procrastinate, complain, always blame others, always fear change, then it becomes very difficult to stay strong for long. Because people absorb the energy around them like a sponge absorbs water. You cannot live in darkness too long without becoming used to it. That is why the best people are always extremely careful about their environment. They understand a good seed can still die if buried in barren soil. And sometimes, to grow, you must be brave enough to leave familiar places behind. That is not easy, because many people in your old environment will not like your changes. They prefer the old version of you, the version that is predictable, easy to control, never beyond them, have you noticed? When someone starts taking life seriously, people often say, you have changed, you are doing too much, just live simply. It sounds harmless. But many dreams have died, simply because people feared feeling separated from the crowd. I have experienced that myself. There was a period when I started reading more books, started changing my mindset, started wanting to grow. And do you know what happened? Some people around me became uncomfortable, not because I did anything wrong, but because my growth forced them to see their own stagnation. That is something very real in life. When you start growing, not everyone will be happy for you. That is why the best people learn to protect their energy. They become very careful about who gets close to them, who influences their mind, and what is allowed to live inside their head every day. But remember, environment is not only people. It is also what you read, what you listen to, what you watch before sleeping. The conversations you repeat every day. If every morning you wake up to negative news, complaints, pessimistic voices, then it becomes very difficult for your mind to stay strong. On the other hand, when you start feeding your mind with good ideas, positive thinking, growth-inspiring people, then something inside you begins to change. I have always believed people rarely live above the environment they accept. That is why, if you want to change your life, sometimes you must change where you stand, who you walk with, and even the mental space you live in every day. There is a quote I really love. If you are the smartest person in the room, you are probably in the wrong room. The best people always place themselves near
people who force them to grow, force them to think bigger, force them to raise their standards higher. At first, that feels uncomfortable.
You will feel small, you will see the gap, but that feeling is exactly what creates growth. It is like climbing a mountain. You cannot stay at the bottom forever and expect to see the view from the top. And then I understood, a person's life often changes very quickly after they change the environment they live in. Because when you stay close to disciplined people, discipline starts feeling normal. When you stay close to people who dare to dream big, your dreams become bigger too. When you stay close to people who never quit, you start feeling ashamed of living too comfortably. That is the invisible power of environment. And sometimes, one of the most important decisions in your life is not what career you choose. It is who has permission to influence your mind every day. But there is something even more dangerous than a bad environment. It is when you become the person pulling yourself down. Sixth way, stop betraying yourself. There is a strange kind of pain in life. Nobody sees it. There is no blood, no sound. But it quietly weakens a person over the years. It is the feeling of constantly breaking promises to yourself. You say, I will start tomorrow, but then tomorrow, and everything stays the same. You say, this time I will be serious. But only a few days later, you return to your old habits again. At first glance, those things seem small. But listen to me carefully. Every time you break a promise to yourself, a piece of your inner trust disappears. And slowly, that is how many people lose themselves. Not because they lack ability, but because they spend too long betraying themselves every day. I have seen that in myself. There was a period when I talked a lot about the life I wanted to live. I had plans, goals, dreams. But underneath all of it, my actions did not match my words. I procrastinated on important things. I let emotions decide how I lived my days. I constantly allowed myself to ignore discipline, delay change, live a little more comfortably, and the strange thing was, nobody knew. People on the outside still thought I was fine, but inside, I started losing respect for myself. That is the most dangerous thing about self-betrayal. It does not destroy you immediately. It only makes you become smaller in your own eyes. You begin questioning
Whether you can truly do it.
whether you are strong enough or whether it is all just talk, and then, one day, you look in the mirror.
And realize
The person who made your life smaller the most was not the world. It was you. That is a painful moment, but also a very real one. Because sometimes the biggest obstacle in a person's life is not outside of them. It is inside the small choices they repeat every day. The best people understand this clearly. They understand that if you want to become stronger, you first need to become someone you can trust. Not to the whole world, but to yourself. If you say you will wake up early, then wake up. If you say you will read, then read. If you say you will change, then start. Because every time you keep a small promise to yourself, you rebuild strength inside yourself. I once heard someone say, my life has never changed in any big way, but when I looked closer, I realized the problem was not life itself. It was his small daily choices. One more hour of procrastination, one more time quitting, one more time saying, I will deal with it tomorrow. You see, life rarely collapses in one huge moment. It usually falls apart through small acts of comfort repeated too long, like a house. It does not collapse the first day a crack appears. But if you never repair it, it becomes weaker little by little every day. People are the same way. Every time you allow yourself to live below what you know you are capable of, a quiet disappointment begins growing inside you. And the most painful part is, many people have lived with that feeling for so long. They are so used to procrastinating, quitting, living halfway, that they no longer believe they can become better anymore. But remember this, nobody is born disciplined. Nobody naturally becomes strong. Everything is built from small decisions, very small, so small that most people underestimate them. One morning waking up on time, one day refusing to quit halfway through, one time keeping your promise to yourself. Those things sound simple, but they are quietly building your identity. And in the end, identity is what decides your life, not emotions, not temporary motivation, but the kind of person you become after thousands of small choices. There is something I realized after many years. Truly strong people are not people who have never been weak. They are people who no longer allow themselves to live in betrayal of themselves. They are tired, but keep going. They are afraid, but still move forward. They fail, but do not turn their backs on their own future. That is real strength. And sometimes, The moment that changes a person's life is not when they make more money. It is when they start believing in themselves again. Believing that they can change, they can grow, they can live stronger than yesterday. Because when a person regains belief in themselves, many things that once seemed impossible start becoming possible. And then I understood the best people do not wait for life to change first. They change themselves first, little by little, every single day. Seventh way, change your life through small things. There is a huge misunderstanding many people carry their entire lives. They think that to change their life, something huge has to happen. A big opportunity, a major turning point, a very special moment. But the truth is, most extraordinary lives are built from very small things. So small that while doing them, you almost feel like nothing is changing. I used to think success had to come quickly. I used to believe one day everything would suddenly be different. But then I realized life does not change overnight. It changes after thousands of mornings when you decide not to quit. There was a man I once met. He was not rich, not famous, did not have a special starting point. But there was one thing he did for many years. Every morning, he woke up 30 minutes earlier. Just 30 minutes. He used that time to read a few pages, write down goals, take walks, think about his life. At first glance, it did not seem important. Nobody applauded him, nobody knew. But 5 years later, he was completely different. His way of speaking was different. His mindset was different. His confidence was different. His life was different too. And that was when I understood something very deeply. Small things, when repeated long enough, become destiny, like flowing water. One drop of water cannot do anything to a rock. But after thousands of days, it can wear down even the hardest surface. People are the same way. You do not become stronger in one day. You become stronger through small choices repeated again and again. One day reading a few more pages. One day controlling your anger a little better. One day waking up slightly earlier. One day refusing to quit halfway through. At first glance, everything seems very small. But life is actually built from those exact things. The problem is, most people are not patient enough to see the power of accumulation. They want fast results, want instant change, want a different life within a few weeks. And when that does not happen, they quit too soon. Like someone digging for water. They dig a little here, see no water, then move somewhere else, then dig a little again. In the end, they spend their whole life digging in many places, but nowhere deep enough to find water. The best people are different. They understand the power of quiet persistence. They are not obsessed with asking, have I become successful yet today? They only focus on, am I better today than I was yesterday? That is the mindset that changes lives. I still remember a period when I felt like I was progressing very slowly. I saw other people succeeding faster and started doubting myself. But then I realized bamboo does not grow tall in its first year. For many years, it quietly develops roots underground. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But underneath, everything is being prepared for future growth. People are the same way. There are periods when your life seems completely still, but in reality, you are building roots. Discipline, mindset, resilience, maturity. And then one day, everything starts changing very quickly. Not because of magic, but because you quietly built the foundation long enough. That is why never underestimate small changes. One better morning can lead to one better day. One better day can lead to an entirely different year. And one entirely different year can change your whole life. The best people understand every day is a vote for the person they want to become. When you read books, stay disciplined, keep promises to yourself, continue even when tired, you are voting for a stronger version of yourself. On the other hand, every time you choose procrastination, comfort, quitting, living without direction, you are also building another kind of life. And the scary part is, many people do not realize their lives are being decided by very small daily choices. Not by huge moments, but by the things they repeat consistently. There is a quote I have always believed in: success rarely comes from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do every day. So, if today you feel very far from the person you want to become, do not lose hope. Do not think you need to change everything overnight. Start with small things, very small things, but do them seriously. Because sometimes the distance between an ordinary life and an extraordinary life is only a few small habits, repeated long enough. And then I understood the final truth. The best people are not people who have never been weak, not people who have never failed, not people who are always strong, but people who every day continue becoming a better version of themselves, even if only a little. Maybe by now you have realized something very important. Becoming the best does not start with talent. It starts with very small choices, repeated every day. The way you learn, the way you think, the way you stay disciplined when nobody is watching, the way you stand back up after failure, the way you protect your environment. And most importantly, the way you treat yourself. I think there are many people out there living exhausted lives, not because they are weak, but because they have spent too long living as a version of themselves they never truly wanted to become. They know they could be better, know they could be stronger, but every day they continue procrastinating, continue doubting themselves, continue betraying their own potential one more time. And the sad part is, nobody sees that battle except them. There are people who look fine on the outside, still smiling, still going to work, still living normally, but inside, they lost faith in themselves a very long time ago. If you are in that feeling right now, I want you to remember this. It is not too late for you. Listen to me again. It is not too late for you. As long as you still want to change, your life is not over. Maybe today you are not where you want to be. Maybe you have failed before, procrastinated before, quit many times before, but that does not mean you have to live that way forever. Because a person can change the direction of their life from just one truly serious decision. One morning waking up earlier, one time keeping a promise to yourself, one day refusing to quit halfway through. At first glance, everything seems small. But remember, the sun does not appear in 1 second. It begins with very small rays of light on the horizon. People are the same way. You do not need to become perfect immediately. You only need to become a little better than yesterday, a little stronger than yesterday, a little more disciplined than yesterday. And if you continue long enough, one day you will look back at yourself and barely recognize the old version anymore. That is the power of quiet change. That is how extraordinary lives are created. Not loudly, not through magic, just a person who no longer accepts living below their potential. If this video touched you, leave a comment below. You are still here, still fighting, still not giving up on yourself. And if you want to continue the journey toward becoming a stronger version of yourself, subscribe to this channel. Because sometimes what we need most is not an easier life, but becoming a stronger person capable of walking through that life. So starting today, do not just ask, how do I become successful? Start asking today, who am I becoming?